Welcome, everyone. I am Kristina Campbell, your host for Sexual Freedom for Women Season 2. Release your inhibitions, deeply connect, and unleash your sexual pleasure. Today, I am interviewing the lovely, the sensual Nadia Munla. Nadia, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me.
Yay! So I'm going to read you a little bit about Nadia's bio so you get to know her a little bit, and then we're going to jump into our topic about embodiment because Nadia is a woman's embodiment coach. Nadia is a woman's embodiment coach who guides women to sensual nourishment and embodied power by helping them reconnect to their body. She is immensely passionate about supporting women in their journey back to their embodied essence, so they can feel vibrant, alive, feminine, and free again. Yes, hallelujah, Nadia. Thank you so
Ooh.
much for doing the work that you do. I mean, this is it, right? This is really the key. So embodiment, it's like this word floating around the ethers of the internet. Really tell us, break it down. What is embodiment?
In simple terms, embodiment is getting more connected to our bodies, right? But to elaborate a little bit on that, the reason I think it's so important for us to start to talk more and why there is that buzzword embodiment more and more these days is because I think we've been living in a world for quite a long time where there's been a reverence, a value placed primarily on just rational cognitive thinking. It's very much a world where we are told, you got to do things a certain way and primarily get really smart up here, really function from the neck up, and you will get success, which of course equals happiness, right? This is the formula that we are given. And then we were like, but I did all the things. I still feel like crap. I don't understand. And we even will then go to maybe a life coach or a therapist, right? Like we have all these different places where we go and go, okay, I'm still not feeling great. Like, how do we solve it? And it's all, again, conceptual and cognitive and up here. And with embodiment coaching and the work that I do, I really came to a place in my own journey and through working with women for such a long period of time in their bodies, I came to realize that although there is so much beauty and value to talk therapy and life coaching and mindset coaching and all of that stuff, oftentimes people still feel like they're sort of hitting a wall and they're like, okay, I'm aware of the pattern now. I can see it. I can even speak about it, yet it's still happening. Why is it still happening? And to me, I think that there's these two different therapies. There's sort of top-down and bottom-up approaches. And top-down is talk therapy, is mindset coaching. It's very much the idea of let's change our words first to then change our thoughts, to change our brain, to then change our body, to then change our life. And what I'm really saying in the work that I'm doing is it's equally as important, if not more efficient, to actually change your body first and your relationship to your body and the state of your body to then change your thoughts, which then change your thought patterns, which then change your brain, which then change your life. And so it's just another way of doing things. And because I think we've been so hyper-focused on one way, we are now moving into, what is it like to actually try things in a slightly different way? And I think they're really good in tandem, to be clear. I don't think one is better than the other. It just happens to be the work I do.
Right, super juicy. So embodiment. So how do you actually coach a woman around embodiment if we're not doing mindset, if we're not talking about what's going on in our lives so much? So let's say a woman comes to you with a problem. How do you approach it when you're approaching it from a bottom up embodiment perspective?
Yeah, great question. So we're still definitely doing talking, to be clear. However, the talking is less about processing and solving and like looking, we might start off by pinpointing a pattern, but then the answer and the more efficient way of doing things is instead of sort of willing your way or trying to I don't know, I guess do it from a sort of fear-based motivation is sort of the way that I think about it. What we do is we drop straight into the body. So oftentimes it starts with the body even. So we're not even taking information from our brain, but we're really, I drop people into a meditative state. They go through an energetic visualization of seeing what's going on in their body. We pull different pieces of information, and then we see, what does the body actually have to say? Because oftentimes our bodies have really interesting sacred wisdom, but we haven't cultivated a trust in that wisdom because, again, we live in a world that focuses so much on like, oh, the mind is way, way like higher on the hierarchy than the body. But really, when you look at ancient practices, different cultures, you realize there's way, way more focus on what the body has to offer. So sometimes we're going in straight to the body through these energetic meditations and practices, and then we pull out some information, which we then need to process through our minds. Sometimes we start with the mind, see what pattern there is. So a client might come to me and say, oh, hey, I'm noticing that I have a really hard time saying no or identifying my yes or my no. Which is, okay, so let's use that as an example. And then, so that's already, she's using her mind. She knows she has that pattern. But then what we do is through movement, through meditation, we start to tap into what does it feel like somatically in her body? Where's the no and where's the yes? Is it a tightness? Is it an expansion? Does she feel it in her heart or her belly? For some of us, we all have different energetic makeup. There's a philosophy, a sort of modality called human design, which I won't get into, but if anyone's interested listening, look it up. And it talks about these different areas in our bodies that for some of us is open and for some of us is closed in our aura. And so it's really important for each person to understand how their unique yes shows up and their unique no, because it's not going to be the same at all. We always talk about gut instinct and intuition being in your belly. Yes and no. For some people, it's actually higher up. It could be in your heart. So I think it's really cool to just take time with someone who's walking you through the process to start to understand, to identify, how can I increase my capacity for pleasure? Where do I find power in my body? Where can I find play in my body? These are all the different things that we're doing. And by feeling it in an embodied, immersive space, what's actually happening is you're changing your nervous system and the patterns in your nervous system in this part of your reptilian part of your brain, which doesn't speak words. So the reptilian part of your brain, which is sort of where our fight or flight response is, and which is the reason why so often we have these great mantras and we have these great ideas, but then we clench up and don't do any of them, is because actually we're trying to just looking the other day on Instagram, they were advertising for me a mantra bracelet. I will, therefore I can, or I can, therefore I will, or I don't know, something like that. And I was like, oh God, these mantras feel so, they have a good intention, but oftentimes there's many of us, myself included, when I started coaching with coaches, I kept feeling like, why isn't this working for me? Why am I broken? Is something wrong? It's not changing. And then realizing that I had so much in my nervous system from growing up in a war, from, all sorts of sexual abuse. There's just stuff that you need to work your reptilian brain with. And the way to do that is actually through breath, through movement, and through meditation, as opposed to cognitively saying, I will, or I can, and I will do it, and then feeling really crappy that but it didn't work. I wrote my thing on my mirror every day, and why is it not working, which is how I felt. I was like, and so it's really going straight to this part of your brain that speaks the language of breath and movement, and speak to it with the language it knows, not words or thoughts, because it doesn't understand that.
So I just love everything that you're putting out on the table. And so for any of us that are listening, do you find that this type of approach works for all women, or is it a certain type of woman that is, we all have different personality types, and you're talking about the difference between these two different types of coaching, and some mindset coaching really works for some people. So could it work for everybody, or is there a certain type of woman, a certain history that it lends itself more to?
It's a great question. So definitely it's going to help everyone. And the people it will be most efficient with are the ones who probably have more of some sort of trauma history. People who find themselves very clenched up in bouts of fear, spiraling, you know, a lot of just like spiral thinking, feeling constantly negative, even though there's a part of them that's like, I really want to be positive, and like they're really trying so hard. Also, very much, I work with like type A overachieving women, being that I was one myself recovering. And I find that oftentimes the reason why we overwork is because, or we're just like really perfectionist and type A, is it's actually a hypervigilance. It's a way for us to try to control our fear and try to control our environment, which is actually, it's again, sacred wisdom from our nervous system. It's a way for us to protect our body from danger. And it's the way that we learned, okay, we need to do this in order for everything to be okay. So there's a sense of trying to keep yourself safe. But what we then have to work on is actually creating a sense of safety in your nervous system, in your body. And from there, when you have the tools in your toolbox to plug you back into that sense of safety, you're not going to need all that overworking to feel that way.
I love that. And one of the things that you said when I first asked the question was, you know, it might lend itself to somebody who has a history of trauma. And I just want to define here that trauma does not have to be some big event. Like Nadia mentioned, growing up in a war, it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be rape. It doesn't have to be, you know, people experience trauma from tiny little things, you know, when you know, after a time of coaching people, and it's like this experience where their mom pulled their arm in the grocery store, and it's like, it got locked into your nervous system. So I just want you to know, if you're like, maybe that's not for me, because I don't have a history of trauma, that just to redefine and open up really what trauma is and how it functions in our lives. Because we've made it this big thing. It's kind of
and we're living in a world where really right now, collectively, especially in the West, we're all in a place of we're just like at trigger at all times. Like, but you know, we're all sort of in this like, you know, a hyper vigilant state. Just because of the state of the country, the Me Too movement, just there's so many different things going on that have us in this place of like, there's also a lot of shadow coming up collectively around different things, you know, gender relations, race relations, and so on. And so we're all in this like place of like, we're in that protective fear mode of like, what do I need to do in order to keep myself safe? And that alone means that basically everyone can benefit from this type of work of figuring out, you know, we've been talking about the science of it, because I do love anchoring in the science. I'm a very like sciencey person, and also the poetry of it, or the more visual version of it for people who are more of that personality type, is one of soothing yourself, learning how to mother your own inner child. So it's the same thing. It's just one, we understand it from the science and neurology side of things. And the other one is that we're just learning pragmatically how to be our own parent.
beautiful. And one of the things you said there was, you know, we're all kind of gripping against this fear, and it's this relearning about how really to create safety and create safety in our bodies. What is one of the number one tools that you offer your clients to create safety in their bodies?
Yeah. So, you know, I always tell people, I say the work of feeling sexy is not sexy at all. So, you know, which is great for marketing, I can't tell you. But no, it's really true, because I think we have a lot of programs out there that are like, okay, put on some nice lingerie and, you know, get yourself a feather boa and learn how to lap dance, and you're going to feel sexy. And same thing like the mindset coaching. I get a lot of my clients coming to me and being like, I tried all that stuff and it like didn't work. Am I broken? Why do I still feel this way? It's not working for me, you know? And the truth is that that's a very, again, a top-down approach or outside-in approach, where it's like you have to put on this costume and then suddenly you're supposed to feel sexy. Now, there's nothing wrong with lingerie, boas, or lap dancing. All are great, and I am 100% a fan of them all. And they're great tools once you've done the inner work of connecting to a sense of safety. Because so often the reason we feel still disconnected, other than it might not be authentically aligned with our own particular sensual or erotic alter ego or personality, is that it's also because we haven't done the foundational nervous system work. So for a lot of us, even if, again, we feel like we haven't had quote unquote trauma, which, like you had said, is very broad of a term, even if you still feel like you don't identify as having any trauma history, if you think about the world we live in a world that tells us that, if you're overly sexual, you're not taken seriously. If, you need to be polite and small and keep it together and really be like a man to succeed in the world. I have so many clients come to me who realize after we have a quick conversation that they're actually they find it inconvenient to be a woman. Like, it really sucks being a woman. And so we live in a world that unfortunately has unconsciously put that into our mind. And so if we are in this place where we have been growing up with messages from religion, from media, from our parents, from our teachers, that okay, we're supposed to strip away this piece of us, or we're only allowed to show it in a certain part of our life and not another part, what ends up happening is, yes, it's going to affect your nervous system and your sense of safety. And you're not going to know, okay, this erotic energy, when is it safe to actually be in it fully? And being in it fully in your feminine, if you are someone who identifies as primarily feminine essence, meaning you want to be ravished and you want to be taken, right? Then if this is your preference sensually and sexually, then what happens is there's also you have to feel so safe to fully surrender, to just be like this total melted puddle of ecstasy. So how do we do that in a world that continues to tell us to hold it together?
Yeah.
It's not a one-step process. I'm going to start with that, because based on how you heard about how many different messages and different ways in which this can infiltrate our bodies, it's obviously a whole journey, which is why I work with clients over 6 months, not one session. And the place to start is as simple as taking 30 seconds in the morning, as you can even have your eyes still closed. You're laying in bed. You don't even have to move. So no one can give me an excuse of laziness and whatnot. You don't even need to move. And all you do is you take your fingertips and your palms and you start at the top of your head. If you want to start at the bottom, hey, not going to change anything. But, I like to start at the top of my head, and you just let your hands explore your body. It's really that simple. And let me give you a little bit of some ideas of how can you explore your body. You can explore different types of touch that your body wants that day. So I might wake up on certain days and really want a massage, and that's just really what I want. There's days where I just want tapping, wake up the nerve endings on your body, so you can just tap your entire body. It's just it's like a 30-second wake-up call to your body. Maybe it's an exploratory touch where you're like, ooh, where's the softest space I can find today on my body? And that might be a place that you don't normally like, right? Because you look in the mirror and you're like, I don't know about that thing, right? Because again, we get infiltrated with all sorts of images of what it should look like. So maybe suddenly you realize, wait a second, that part of my belly that I always feel self-conscious of is actually the softest, yummiest place to touch. So wait, if this feels really good to touch, maybe my lover actually really likes it. And maybe the experience of my lover is one of, oh my God, that feels so soft and so good, as opposed to, you could have a six pack or whatever. I don't know that that's still a thing nowadays, but if it is, you might have really tight abs, and maybe you realize I actually don't know that that's my favorite way of feeling in this part of my body, right? So there's just really interesting information that can come up as to how something feels versus how something looks. And then also from a sensory perspective, it's just really great to wake up your body, and it's sort of like a little bit of a devotional prayer, hi, I see you, I feel you, I'm here with you, we're spending the day together from now until I die. And it's a little bit of a love letter without using words, and I find that that is just the first step, and there's so many steps, but it's the first step in stretching your capacity for pleasure and stretching your capacity for connection with your body. Because so often our connection with our body is I'm looking over there because there's a mirror in front of me. It's like looking at the mirror, seeing the reflection, and then connecting to the reflection, right? Or connecting to thoughts that we create in our mind about what we think our lover is thinking as they touch our body. And it's like, just move out the middleman. Let's get straight to, how do you feel with your body? How does it feel to have your palms touch your body? How does it feel to have your body receive the touch of your palms? That sort of a thing.
So I just love what you're putting out here right now, because I do a morning meditation type thing too. It's very different from this, but what I love about this is that it's like every time we wake up, our consciousness is coming straight into our mind, like just by the waking up. Our brain wakes up and we say, oh, what am I doing today? Is it Friday? Oh no, it's Saturday. And boom, we're straight into our mind and we're into our day. And this is like that taking that time to say, I'm going into my body too, and setting the day with going straight into your body and not just letting your mind run away, and take you. So that's super beautiful. And one of the other things that you started to talk about was really like all of these messages and this conditioning that we get around our bodies. So we live so much of our lives based on these messages. And these messages are ultimately myths. So what are like the 3 most prominent myths that you see women like ruling their lives when it comes to their sensuality, their body, their feminine beings? Let's dispel those.
Awesome. I love it. Because my favorite thing, the way that I think of my work, and hopefully this is the way a lot of other people think about this too, is we're actually coming back to ourselves. So for me, I think of it like these myths and messages are plastered on our bodies, like, those just like extra like posters that you find on like big poles outside on the street, like missing cat, rock concert, looking for a roommate. It's like we're walking around in the world and we have all this gunk on us that isn't ours. And so what a reclamation it is to strip yourself of these layers, right? And to get back to your essence. And each person's going to have a different thing underneath, which is why it's so awesome. And we need your unique genius and your unique flavor there. So what are these myths? Okay, there's a lot of them, but we're going to talk about the top 3 today. And we talked about 2 of them already just in the other questions. So we'll sort of recap real quick. But the first one is this idea that the only way that we can change our life is by starting off by changing our words, right? Changing our words, which then lead to changing our thoughts, which then lead to changing our body state, which then leads to changing our life. Not true. We can go at it from the bottom up. We go to the body. What happens? Here's an example. Everyone, let's do this together. We're going to do a little exercise. Okay. So it's very simple. You don't need to move. All you're going to do is you're going to clench up your entire body. You're going to hold your breath. You're going to squeeze every muscle in your body. And you're going to hunch over and you're going to be like, you're going to think or say out loud, I am awesome.
I am awesome.
Okay, great. Did that feel awesome, guys? Did it feel awesome? Probably not. Did it feel awesome for you?
No.
Great. Now we're going to open our hearts, breathe into your belly, really take a moment to feel complete expansion in your entire body. Your next inhale is going to just grow you, lengthen your spine, maybe even close your eyes and open your heart and your belly and just think, I suck. Totally convincing, right? Obviously not. This is like such a basic example of how very often our body state can actually trump the state of what it is, our words or our thoughts, right? And so again, this explains why so often you'd be like, I'm going to do it. And you're like, probably not inviting in opportunities and, attracting all the things. So it doesn't mean thoughts don't count, because there's also a feedback loop of course, thoughts are going to affect your body state and so on and so forth. All I'm saying is it doesn't just have to be, let's use my mind to think my way out of this, right? Let's try a different way, right? So that's one. The second myth is the idea of like mind over matter. Again, we sort of covered this a little bit, but where again, mind has hierarchy over our body. The idea that if I just try hard enough in my business, with my body, if I just, 2019, my gym goals, I'm sure everyone's like in that place now, right? It's like, if I just do it this year, if I just put my head to it, right? Put my head to it, it's going to happen. And we don't trust enough that our body actually knows best. I used to have clients come to me and go, oh God, I feel so bad. I didn't go to the gym this morning. And I'm like, okay, well, where are you in your cycle? Like, it would come up where they are in their cycle. And they're like, oh, actually I just got my period. I'm like, so you actually did what's best for your body. Because hormonally speaking, it is actually recommended. Not all of us know this because, again, most of our trainers are men or women who got trained in a very masculine, patriarchy, that, oh, go to the gym every day at 5 a.m. This is how you are the best version of yourself. It's like, actually, that's not true. As women, we have different hormone levels. We are supposed to be doing different things at different times of the month. And right when you're about to bleed, the worst thing you can do for yourself, especially for weight loss, by the way, but for a million other reasons, your adrenals and whatnot, is actually not, the worst thing you can do is go to the gym. Because the way, I'm not gonna get into it too much, but you guys hit me up if you wanna know more on social media. Basically, your cortisol and adrenaline shoots up, and that's actually the opposite of what needs to happen with your body at that point. So I'm like, oh, great. Victory, you actually listen to your body. But we're not taught that this is actually sacred, that this is valuable, and that there might be outcomes, really positive results from doing that. So it takes a matter, and this usually, takes several months, if not years, for us to slowly start to readjust our mindset of, oh, right, if we just push our way through it, we'll get the results that we need and we will succeed, and therefore we will be happy. Right? Third one. Sexy girls aren't taken seriously. Again, we sort of talked about that. There is so much fear around embracing our erotic energy, and we all have it. It is an innate, essential birthright. And it is the hardest piece to reclaim, because we still have things in the world that have us going, is it really okay to do that yet? Right? And so the key is figuring out how, and this is where the yeses and the nos come in. This is where increasing your capacity for pleasure, first in a very comfortable container that's super safe, like your home alone. Then it's a comfortable container where maybe there's other women that you trust. And then you're slowly working your way out into the world. But you got to start with yourself first, right? And when you start with little things like your own self-touch, doing a moving meditation, like even just hip circles or like shoulder rolls, or like anything that just feels like yummy for you in the morning. You put on a song that just feels really good and you're like, okay, then basically what happens is that you're increasing your nervous system's capacity to essentially drop into that when there are higher stakes, because you have to start something when it's low stakes and super safe. And then you move over into the state of, okay, there's more variables, there's more stuff that's, involved here. And I'm still able to connect to my yes and my no. I'm still able to navigate my internal terrain of what's pleasurable and what isn't. Where am I in my power? Where are my boundaries, right? All of that stuff is really, really important. But again, there's a step-by-step process. And I think ultimately the reason I do this work is that a more embodied woman, a woman who is more in her full range, she can connect to her pleasure, her power, her play, all these different amazing parts of her. If she has that capacity, she's going to show up and heal the world, like seriously, way, way more than someone who's disconnected. And now there's places where the key is agency. The key is being able to choose when I want to dial up the pleasure. I get to choose. That's the key, right? Dial up the power, dial up the play. But the problem is that most people don't even know where that switch is or where the dial is. So our work is figuring out where the dial is and then knowing where is the place to actually bring it up and bring it down. Because I might go to the grocery store and like do not want to have attention. And I might go like in a hoodie, like walking like, you know, because I'm very consciously going, I would not like to pick up someone right now, you know? Or I might walk into a restaurant on a Friday and be like, right? But I get to choose that. That's the key. And that to me is true empowerment.
Yes, yes. I love so much of what you shared, Nadia. You're amazing and so articulate, so beautiful.
Thank you.
So grateful for you coming on, and I would love for you to share with our audience what the free gift is that you're offering. Super awesome.
Yes, it is one of my favorite tools ever. It's called the Embodiment Starter Kit. And I created it because so many people in my community who maybe aren't necessarily able to work with me or wanted to see what the first step was, they were looking for a practice that they could incorporate into their life that's more of a moving meditation practice as opposed to a seated meditation practice. And so this little kit has a combination of videos for anyone, any age, any background, any fitness level. It's really not about fitness. It's very intuitive moves, very feminine moves that start to wake up your like Shakti energy, your life force, your pleasure, your power, all these pieces. And we have a few little playlists that are attached to it. And there's a sensual meditation as well that will really help you drop into just your different senses so that you can feel more connected as you go to rock whatever it is that you're going to rock, whether it's a date or a job interview or a pitch meeting, you know. And so all of those are included in that little embodiment starter kit. Great way to drop in.
Amazing. I'm so, seriously so generous. So anybody that's listening, if you have had a spark of something yummy in this conversation, or you are just interested in learning how to really reconnect with your body and have some of those essential tools to connect and expand your sensuality, I highly suggest that you click on the gift link right below this interview and get Nadia's free gift. Nadia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone, until we see you next time on the next interview. Bye-bye.